The Happy Warrior Podcast, conservative commentary on the news of the day from a more positive perspective.
Hello and welcome everyone. This is the Happy Warrior Podcast, here once again with your host, Peter the Vaughn Pischke, the incorrigible, the red-haired, the ever-fair, the bronze beauty, the beast from, I don't know. I'm running out of names. I'm running out of good names. The Grey Wizard? No, that's Gandalf. Anyhow, hey, welcome everyone. It's good to be back here with all of you. I know it's been a week. I had to work on my master's project. I met with the review board. They gave me the approval and poof, I am now a master's educated American. I'm so proud of myself. I'm really happy. It was nerve-wracking. Anyhow, all that master's stuff put me off from working on the podcast. I am now done. I am free. I am all yours, body, mind, and soul. You can have me. I'm here to stay. Once again, we are missing Robert. Robert knows that we need to get together. He has 6 podcasts now, I think, that he's in charge producing. Like 2 or 3 he's actually in, but he has to help produce the rest of them. So me doing a lot of this on my own at home is helping him out. It's lifting that burden off of him, and I'm happy to do it. It's good practice to learn to monologue and narrate by yourself, and I'm happy to go ahead and give that my very best. Thank you again for being here to listen to me. I always appreciate all the comments and the kind thoughts and words and messages that are sent my way. Also, those prayers and thoughts that are sent my way that I never hear about. Thank you for those too. Today, we have a ton of important news that no one wanted to talk about from last week. And I'm kind of frustrated that none of these stories, or almost none of these stories I'm going to share with you today, were shared anywhere. And so I put together a pretty full, heavy outline, and I have the links organized. I have them in nice boxes, so you can share this stuff on Facebook. You can look at the outline and share it with your buds, so you too can have access to all this. And you can find that, we may be posting the outline on Facebook.com, where we always put podcasts, or you can find it at theSiouxEmpire.com. That's, of course, the home base. That's the platform I'm recording with. That's Robert Mehling's baby. That's his baby. So please go to there. I added something new. I added an email address. And here, let me get the email address for you. If you would like to ask me questions, share stories, or just vague comments, maybe even send me some spam, you can reach me at Pete, P-E-T-E, at happywarrior.net. So that's P-E-T-E at happy-warrior.net. Pete at happy-warrior.net. I hope you guys got that. I'll be checking my email weekly, and I hope at the end of these episodes that I can share cool comments, cool stories, interesting notes or questions that you guys have for me about what's going on with my podcast. Now let's get started with the first segment today. As some of you may be aware, I am a libertarian. I consider myself a constitutional libertarian, so I believe that my beliefs and my political reasoning is dictated towards the same ideas, the same root source, which is the Enlightenment, that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, James Madison, and so many other great thinkers and leaders that helped found this beautiful nation we call the United States of America. Well, I bring my knowledge and understanding from that same fountain. And that makes me a pro-life libertarian, which is kind of weird. That's probably the most divisive issue between a libertarian and conservative. Besides the size of government, I think it's the issue on life and social issues like that. One of those today that we're going to talk about is euthanasia. And a little bit about abortion, but mostly euthanasia. And now, I know people like to make euthanasia arguments, usually on religious ones, but I'm not going to do that today. Today, I'm going to dig up some stories that just came out in this last week about the issue of euthanasia. And I'm going to try to convince you to join my side in moving against euthanasia in most cases. And we're going to do that using our noggin. Now, for this first news story for our segment, I wanted to share this really interesting story coming out of Canada. It's for this guy that I really feel for. He's going through some really tough stuff. A Canadian man suffering from an incurable neurological disease. His name is Roger Foley. He's 42. He suffers from cerebellar ataxia, and this makes it so he can't move his arms and legs. Well, he just filed a lawsuit against a London, Ontario hospital, some health agencies, the Ontario government, the federal government of Canada, and he's alleging that while they wouldn't provide him any assisted home care and the medical care that he desired, at home. Instead, though, they were more than happy to offer euthanasia, assisted suicide. And that's scary, but I wanted to play that audio so you can hear it for yourself. And I'd like to point out before we play this clip that it's 3 minutes long. I only made the lightest of edits from a video from ctvnews.canada. Just so you know, I wanted to keep this journalism up and honest with you.
After September 11th, gets her coercion wishes.
If your stay is uninsured, then the hospital would bill you for staying in the hospital.
How much?
A per diem rate. It's I don't know what the exact number is, but it's north of $1,500 a day.
Not legal for the hospital doing is coercion? To threaten that?
I read that. I know the exact letter you're talking about. It's in reference to patients who are waiting for long-term care.
Oh, no. This is an article in the Star where Deb Matthews came open to the media about how she wants hospitals to stop threatening patients.
Yeah. Because there was a time at which people were not using that information correctly, and it was used when it shouldn't have been. In this case, I am assured that Brent and our legal team would have reviewed whether or not it is applicable. We do not use this conversation in every situation. It is only in situations where somebody has a plan in the community that is feasible, that they're not willing to accept, and that's okay.
Wait. You just said there's a plan, so I haven't been informed of what the plan is. And what the planning was, I haven't been a part of it. You just violated my rights under the Home Care Bill of Rights, the participation right. You've already violated my preferences and also reprisals. So what's the plan that you know of?
Roger, this is not my show. I told you my piece of this was to talk to you about if you had interest in assisted dying.
How are you feeling, Raj? Are you feeling like you want to harm yourself or anything like that?
Well, I'm always thinking I want to end my life because of the way things are going. If I had self-directed funding, then I'd be fine,
But if you weren't, you can just apply to get an assisted, if you want to end your life. You don't have to do it in some dramatic manner. You can apply for assisted,
Well, they already presented the outcome option to me, but it's why force me to end my life when...
Oh, no, hang on here. I'm saying if you feel that way, don't get me wrong. I'm saying I don't want you to be here and wanting to take your life if you're having these thoughts, because you always have these thoughts.
Well, because I'm trapped. It's my intolerable suffering is due to the system creating it. I want out of that system. I need self-directed funding, and
yes, but that's something that you're continuing to fight.
Yeah, I'm fighting for my life.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is, don't be rash, and I don't want you to be here because I've noticed that you don't want any forks or knives or anything here. So I don't want you to be doing anything rash.
Okay, so I know that audio was a little hard to hear. What they were talking about was a little all over the place, but I'll try to sum it up. So the first part of the audio is the guy coming to him in the hospital because he doesn't have a way to pay. He says, it could cost you up to $1,500 a day or more to get assisted living. Remember, this guy, he's dying. He can't move his arms or legs at all. He just wants to have assisted home care and wants the team of his choosing. Remember, this is Canada, so they don't do insurance up there. So you have to go through the state. So this guy basically says, no, it costs too much. Then he mentions, by the way, we have this plan, and the plan he's referring to is assisted suicide. And the assisted suicide, hearing about this earlier in the day is what prompted the guy to record all this. This is followed by another dude who comes there later, and the first guy, I think, was just saying that it was available. And the way it sounds to me is that it costs a lot, but if we can't afford to get you an assisted home care team, but how about we get you a little assisted suicide, huh? What do you think about that? And the second guy is very similar. I'm trying to be as fair to them as I can. I'm very frustrated with stories like this. And the healthcare worker just says, I just want you to get suicide. I want you to hurt yourself. And the guy isn't really saying you hurt yourself. He's just saying, my life is stuck in this hospital. I can't move my arms or legs. There's nothing to do. I have been here 2 years. I am depressed and really frustrated with my life. Okay, that's what he's saying. I think most people hearing that understands what he's saying. He's saying, I don't want to just kill myself. He's like, my life sucks the way it is. I want it to be better. Why won't you guys let me? And this guy kind of puts him, you have assisted suicide. And then he says things like, well, you notice that you say you don't want any knives or forks. Well, of course he doesn't want knives and any forks. What's the point? He can't move his arms. I mean, what are they going to do? He's going to use his mouth? He's going to use the fork with his mouth? Ugh. Oh, it's a frustrating story. Canada has had assisted suicide for a while. Euthanasia, assisted suicide, whatever term you want to. And I've heard this before in other stories where there's a money issue or it's an insurance company and something is costly. And they come to the person and says, we can't afford to give you this care. But, if you want, assisted suicide is covered. You could get that. That wouldn't cost you much at all. And I've read a few stories like that, particularly when it comes to the chronically ill or those who have cancer. It's really disgusting to me. It isn't right when a private company does it, like an insurance company here in the States. It isn't right when a government does it, like Canada. It's disgusting. And it's just one story in a litany of stories that I read that had this same vein of where the value of life is, especially when it comes to the issue of euthanasia in our society. Okay, so this was the first one. The other one is disturbing. The first one has audio. If the second one had audio, I would not put it to you, or if I did, I would tell you to bring the children out of the room, because this story is disturbing to me. So this story comes out of the Netherlands, and it goes like this. According to Live Action News, a 74-year-old unidentified woman had been suffering dementia for some time and previously told people she would undergo assisted suicide if, quote, the time was right, unquote. As her dementia progressed, she never put in a request to die and had surpassed the point of giving her full consent. It was then that her doctor declared her to be, quote, suffering intolerably, unquote, and proceeded to euthanize her. Now, so this guy's going to euthanize her by force. She don't want it. She never asked for it. She just suggested, well, maybe someday if I wanted to, I'll do it. That's not the same as consent. It's not even close to consent. Here's what happened, and I am disturbed. Everyone involved in this is just going to hell. I mean, I'm LDS, so we don't quite look at the hell scheme like a lot of Christendom does. But I mean, if I was that way, I mean, wow. So here's how it went. When the doctor came in to euthanize her, the patient was not informed of what was going to happen to her to, quote, avoid unnecessary distress, unquote. She was given coffee with a sedative in it, but she refused to drink it, and then struggled as the doctor tried to kill her. She fought so fiercely that the doctor ordered her own family to physically hold her down, and she was forcibly euthanized. I leave a little silence there to let that sink in. The woman was a pain in the butt. The doctor just, for whatever reason, wanted to get rid of her. She was an inconvenience. Maybe she was rude. I don't know. Patients can be a pain, especially when they're old people. And so he just said, let's euthanize her. I mean, she might have said once that she wants to be euthanized. Let's go ahead and do it. And I mean, the family, it doesn't sound like they stopped him. So probably was sounding like they wanted it. This lady was there enough, though, that she would refuse the coffee. So she might have been far gone, but there was enough going on to refuse a beverage and to realize it was poisoned. I mean, wow. That is messed up. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the thought of your children when you're an old person just holding you down so they can stick the syringe in your backside or whatever else they put it? Oh, it's disturbing. And here's the worst part, people. This isn't the only case. When this was looked into by the Netherlands, a panel found that not only had this doctor acted in good faith, they cleared the doctor, a woman, of ethical violations. No, that's bad enough. But this wasn't the only one. We know of at least 5 other similarly disturbing stories. There's no evidence this woman wished to die by assisted suicide when she was in a clear state of mind. In fact, all her accounts and her living will said to the contrary, that she wanted to live. Wow. This is disgusting. I'll put it this way. I have an article here from Daily Wire. They report that 83 people with mental illness were killed in the Netherlands so far. And I think that's referring to last year, but it could be in total. They haven't had the euthanasia law too long. For any reason, euthanizing people for dementia is evil. That's just pure evil. I don't know what else you can say. Libertarians, they say let people do what they want, but this is clearly not what they want. This is Nazi style. This is making people who don't want to be euthanized, euthanize. Wow. Straight up evil. And so I moved from the Netherlands. Netherlands is far away. We did Canada, we did Netherlands, but Peter, that's the Netherlands of Canada. They're European. They're crazy. Of course, I know Canada isn't Europe, but sometimes I think they believe they are. Part of it speaks French, right? Montreal. So I bring to you this story. It was a op-ed. This is an op-ed written by a person. Not forced to write this, by the way. It's in the Daily Mail. Sorry, I apologize. It was published in the Daily Mail case, so that was in the United States. My apologies. It's still messed up. She wrote in the Daily Mail, which is a UK newspaper. The woman's name is Gillian Ralph. She's a 69-year-old mother. She has a 47-year-old son, Stephen. Stephen has Down syndrome. And so that means that Gillian Ralph and her husband have to take care of Stephen full-time. Well, you know what she wrote? Here's what she wrote. She wrote that she wished she had aborted her Down syndrome son. Yes, the guy that is currently kicking alive right now, she says that he wished he died. She had killed him. Let me read some from the piece. So difficult has it been, I can honestly say I wish he hadn't been born. I know this will shock many. This is my son, whom I've loved, nurtured, and defended for nearly half a century. But if I could go back in time, I would abort him in an instant. I'm now 69 and Roy is 70, and we'll celebrate our golden anniversary next month. She goes into about how much she loves her son, how fiercely protective of her she is, but that he just complicated things, that he was a burden, that if they hadn't had the kid, maybe they would have had other kids. He still had a brother named Andrew, and she said she's sad with the thought that Andrew will have to take care of her one day. And she says, this is why I want to speak in support of the 92% of women who choose to abort their babies after discovering they have Down syndrome. Mothers and then she talks about a lady in the Daily Mail a couple weeks ago who set up similar piece, but at least it wasn't a grown child. She says she braved a backlash of criticism and vitriol from some readers, but I challenge any one of them to walk a mile in the shoes of mothers like me, settled for life as I am, with the needy, difficult, exasperated child who will never grow up before they judge us. I say to that what Mother Teresa would say. Mother Teresa, when she heard about abortion, she would say, oh, give me the babies. I'll take the babies. Give me all the babies. I want the babies. I know that was terrible. Sorry. But the point was she'd take the babies. I am so disgusted. She didn't have to take care of her Down syndrome son all these years, and for that, she does deserve credit. But saying that she wished he was dead, that she never had him, is disgusting to me. I have members of my family, cousins, who are dear to me. Now, none of them have Down syndrome, but they do have autism. At least 2 of them have alcohol fetal syndrome. They're adopted. And it definitely affects them. They are hard to live with. They're hard kids to raise. They are hard kids to be with. When they become adults, we're not sure how interdependent on my aunt and uncle Julius and Joshua will be. We just don't know. But would they ever for a second say that we wish we didn't have them around? They're a lot of work, but I'll tell you, I love Marie and Aaron, that's their name, fiercely. I would never for a second wish to not have them. Marie is the kindest, most wonderful, sweetest girl. She is energetic. Sometimes she causes mischief, but she's just so wonderful. Stories like this make me sick. Sorry for getting emotional there. Just frustrating to me. I bring this up because one of the problems with looking into issues like euthanasia is that while individuals that choose this on their own, I think is fine, because I'm a guy about freedom. I think people should be allowed to do with themselves as they see fit. The problem is that society, with the degrading culture of life, where life has less and less value because it's inconvenient, well, then things like euthanasia get taken advantage of. So it's not the individual that a pro-life libertarian like me worries about. It's those people that would take advantage of it. Governments, insurance companies, the Nazis. The Nazis are the classic. I wrote this. This is one of my first things I wrote for Robert Mehling's website, thesuempire.com, was about the story of Case K. It was this is the kid that started the euthanasia movement in Nazi Germany. He was this kid with severe Down syndrome. I think he was blind and deaf. I don't have the notes in front of me. It's been a while since I looked at the story. But basically, he was a sad story in all the newspapers about this kid and how the parents couldn't take care of him and how it would have been merciful. It was just the merciful thing to do is to euthanize the kid. And Hitler got on that bandwagon. And the very first time that they started euthanizing was with Case K, this little kid. This story, it strongly reminds me that the story Case K and the ones we have that I'm sharing with you today just remind me that it's easy to slip into a culture of death. Now, the Nazis are not an example. I think even an extreme case here in the States or Canada, UK, I don't think it'd go there. And if it did, it'd take a long, long time, because there's enough people like you or me that find stuff like this abhorrent. And so that might pull the plug back on it. But to say never, that could never happen here. I mean, guys, we only need to look at what's happening in Africa to the Christians, or in the Middle East, how they're eliminating groups like ISIS, and Sharia Islam is pushing for the destruction of groups like the Armenians, for example, and other ethnic and religious minorities. So to say that could never happen again, that's just a lie. Human nature is still the same. We may not all be speaking German and going Hail Hitler, but the underlying problem of human nature is still around. And so that's why we need to keep our eyes out for stories like this, where people get forcibly euthanized, or options for medical care are put to the side in favor of euthanization, even when a person doesn't really want it. Okay, so I think that's enough about euthanasia. I had a couple more stories. I had a story about this pro-choice bullies that are getting on this teen cancer patient. He's dying. His mistake was asking the Texas governor to outlaw abortion. That's all he did. And so he's being hounded online, and I think in real life, but at least online, because he said that, which is just nasty. Remember, my podcast is a big underlying principle of this podcast is bringing people together, that we can think differently, reason differently, but at the end we can shake hands and still be friends. Well, that was a story I kind of wanted to share too, but it'll be on the outline. Please look into it. I have data about the thousands of euthanasia killings in Canada. It's more common than you think. I also have a story about Belgium. Belgium has some really scary data. My article about the deaths in Canada, it says that nearly 2,000 were killed in 2017, not including a few territories that just didn't report figures. We are assuming here that all euthanasia deaths of those were reported. All of them, these died from a lethal jab at the patient's request. And it's 2,000 though, that's scary. Since Canadian doctors have legalized euthanasia in Quebec, they've had 4,000 people alone die. And then if you look at Belgium, it's reported that 1,500 people a year die from euthanasia, and this has been going on since 2002 for Belgium. It looks at the people who died, at least 90 of them. So you look at a 2015 study, it showed that of 100 patients who requested euthanasia, 90 of those had at least one psychiatric disorder. More than half of them said they were depressed. Exactly half had a diagnosed personality disorder. Now, let me ask you guys, depression is awful. I have depression. Now, would I have the depression if I didn't have the chronic pancreatitis? We'll never know. But I have it. And there are times in my life where it might have been worse than I would say it would have been worse than the pancreatitis. So if I'm feeling depressed, do you think that's enough reason to kill myself off? I hope 100% of you say no, because that's the right answer. It's scary that these doctors just allow it, that there's no pushback for these patients when they have a psychiatric disorder. You know, euthanasia, the idea we have in our head is someone that is dying of cancer or they have extreme dementia and they're just like their faculties are completely gone, they have no function, they're disappearing, blah, blah, blah. That isn't the case. It's in that study of 100 of the patients they looked at, 90 of them were psych patients. 90! Holy cow! That makes you think of what percentage of that 1,500 patients are psych patients and would be here alive today if it wasn't for this law. Now, I know that's a lot of assuming because, you know, people might commit suicide otherwise, but it still boggles my mind that the state sanctions this kind of stuff. All right, let's move away from the sad stuff and let's talk about animals. So this has gone everywhere on the internet. If you haven't heard this story yet, you're living under a rock, preferably covered in goats, because in Boise, Idaho, 118 goats got loose.
Babies run away, and those guys are too threatening.
Yeah. That's fun. I'll have to wash my hands, I bet. I don't care.
There's so many goats. They're eating everything. They're in the grass, they're in the flowers, they're in the trees. There's so many of them. Oh my gosh. You could crowd surf on those goats. There's so many goats. Oh wow. Wow. So many goats. This is great. People are getting pictures by them. You know, all the stupid thing people do these days. All right, that's my goat story for you. So I looked into it. The goats were part of this business called, and this is the best name for a goat business ever, We Rent Goats. Yes, We Rent Goats. That is a fantastic goat business name. Basically, they just send out goats to do the lawn mowing for you. That's pretty much it. The story goes into how they get all these goats together and they take them out, and there's a quote in the story. Here's the quote from the owner. Goats are great escape artists. It's rare that this many would get out, but they would definitely follow each other. Now this couple, they own 500 goats, and this is what they do. They just grab goats. They go from one place to the next. They drop their goats off. They say, "Go ahead, goats, go do your thing." The goats get to gardening. They're very good landscapers. Everyone knows this about goats. They don't need any training at all. Goats, they're beautiful landscapers. Made some beautiful topiaries. Watered the lawn. Very useful. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so the 100 goats, they can eat around half an acre a day, depending on the amount of vegetation. I mean, it's a lot faster to do this, they say, than other net methods. Of course, then the internet went crazy over this, including the Patriots. That's a football team, right? Yeah, New England Patriots got in on it. Because I guess Tom Brady he's known as the GOAT, the GOAT. I don't know football at all. Don't ask me football questions. Okay, that's my first animal story. I got two more. Sort of. So you ever been to Sam's Club and you went past the meat aisle and be like, man, I wish I had money for meat. I love meat. Love me a good steak. I wish I had the money for it. Well, apparently a Nashville, North Carolina man thought this too. But instead of just saying, well, too bad, I'll try to earn the money and we'll have steak next week. No, he decided he'd go a different route. Instead, he decided to shove $100 worth of Walmart steaks down his pants. Then he tried to make a getaway on his moped after walking out of the Walmart without paying for the steaks. To quote a Facebook reader about the police, he said, quote, he was going to do a stakeout. Wah, wah. Okay, I have one more animal story for you guys. This one is one of a kind. This is from Fox News, but I saw it in a couple other places. Suspects confess to swiping shark from San Antonio Aquarium in baby stroller. That's right. So it's hard to. So it was at this Texas aquarium. The couple, I think there was three of them. They were walking in the building with a baby stroller. One of them moves over to the tank where you get to touch the animals. What do you call that? Touch tank. They move over to the touch tank. One of them goes in, picks up a 1.5 long horn shark, from the San Antonio Aquarium, puts it in the stroller, just walks out. Apparently before they did this, they staked out the pool for more than an hour. They said one of the suspects at least was a 38-year-old white man. When they grabbed the shark by the tail, the people then wrapped it in a wet blanket. They put the shark into a bucket and put the bucket in the bottom part of the baby stroller. They took it to a truck. They said while they were doing this, they actually caused damage to the other wildlife. They accidentally knocked over bleach disinfectant into the water, which made the other animals sick, and the staff caught that part in time, was able to help them. Eventually, the men were confronted, they were taken, and the shark is doing fine. It's so crazy. The story doesn't have any more. That's what I want. I want more from the story. I want to know why. Why did they take the shark? What were they going to do with the shark? Why the baby stroller? Were they feeling sad? Maybe they needed something to love. Unfortunately, they probably wouldn't find that in China, which is the subject of my second segment today. I like to title China and Spies. We say that like Trump. China, 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 still U.S. jobs, China, China, China. China, the country now, there's a lot to like about China. Beautiful. They have just such beautiful land and nature to go and visit, the environment, so much to love. You know what's not to love? The government, the Chinese government, they suck. By any measure, the Chinese government suck. They enslave their people for slave wages. They take the vast majority of profits for any Chinese company. That basically, China owns all legitimate companies, or companies, especially the companies of any note. China owns them. China controls them. China uses them to spy. China spies on others. China is awful to other people, but it's also awful to its own people. And that's the first story here is about ethnic cleansing makes a comeback in China. And this is so weird because I've seen this almost nowhere. This is in the Washington Post. It talks about how at least millions, so they know hundreds of thousands, but perhaps even millions, of innocent Uyghurs, which are an ethnic minority in China. They're, to simplify, they're basically Chinese Muslims. They have a long history of being in China. Could be perhaps millions of these innocent Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities in northwest China in the Xinjiang region have been arrested and imprisoned in what Chinese government, this is what the Chinese government calls it. I'm not making this up. This is what they call it. Political re-education camps. Now, people here in the U.S. are like, re-education camp? This sounds like a bad thing. But China's not willing to shy from that. That makes you wonder how bad those camps are, doesn't it? Yeah, and there are credible reports of torture and death. I guarantee you they're harvesting organs. I know I'm sounding like Alex Jones, but we know for sure that China deals in black market organs. It's something they do. You know, if you get a black market organ because you need one, chances are you're going to get from a Chinese dissident or innocent. Now, China says it's doing it to fight terrorism and religious extremism. And the Uyghurs are fighting this. The international community pretty much has stayed claptrap shut. They are not saying a word. They are silent. This is a huge effort. On top of this, China is trying to cleanse religion to some extent. It just announced any and all religious buildings have to have not only the Chinese flag, they have to have the Chinese Communist Party flag. They're being very critical of what you can teach in Chinese churches. You're not allowed to teach anything about religion outside of these sanctioned churches. They forced the Catholic Church to let China name its own cardinal, and the Catholic Church under this current Pope went with it. That's insane, by the way. What the heck, man? What? Why would you ever agree to that? The Chinese government has banned long beards. It's banned Muslim names. People have been forced to eat pork against their beliefs. It goes so far as that China will not even let people die they want to. They create a bunch of crematoriums, and they're literally extinguishing these bodies so that people like Uyghurs who have Islamic beliefs about burial can't do them. If you know anything about Islamic beliefs with burial, it's a very sacred thing. They don't like the body to be disturbed at all. I think they do frown on cremating remains, but I could be wrong there. So if you're Islamic and I got that last part wrong, my apologies. It's insane. And at the same time, we know that they're putting identity cards to everyone. They're putting checkpoints. They're using online facial recognition. They're taking the DNA, mandatory DNA, and social profiles for everyone. Your ability to get a job, go to school, attend a university, anything is now going to be connected to the social media score you have. And your social media score, you only get a good social media score if you post positive things often and never anything that could be seen as distant. Very dangerous. Basically, they're trying to force the Communist Party into every aspect of their lives. It is 1984 for realsies, and it's wrong. And no one hardly wants to talk about it. That's what bothers me the most. Now, because I'm LDS, I look more at the Christians that are being bothered. That's kind of how it keeps my interest. But I feel just as bad for the Uyghurs. I mean, what's going on is just evil. We know for a while the way they've been treating the Tibetan Buddhists. And we know how they feel about Taiwan. But what they do to their own people, it's indescribable. It's evil. Now, it doesn't end there, because we just find out that Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy who was her advisor and bud on her staff for 20 years. We just found out about it. Now, technically, it was 5 years ago that the information started coming out that this was a Chinese spy, but we're only finding out more about the issue. And I learned this story made me read all kinds of things about Dianne Feinstein. I thought she was just, we disagreed because of our politics, but no, actually, it's not just a political thing. She is pretty friendly with the Chinese government. She has a history even going back to the Tiananmen Square stuff, and she came out in defense of China for the Tiananmen Square, saying that they just didn't have police force. They had to use those tanks. Apparently, she's buddy-buddy with loads of Chinese bureaucrats and politicians. Her husband is heavily invested with the Chinese government. A great story is with the Daily Wire. I want you all, it's in my outline. It's called Daily Wire, Report Dianne Feinstein and the Butchers of Beijing. It's by Spiridon Mitsotakis. And it just talks about back in 2015, Ted Cruz came out with what you would think is unanimous. Well, they had put the Dr. Liu Jiabao, and he was what's the Dynamite Guy? What's the Dynamite Guy award? Anyhow, the Dynamite Guy award. Oh my gosh. Nobel Prize. He was a Nobel Prize winner, and he was imprisoned by China. And so Cruz says, okay, the street that's in front of the Chinese consulate, we are going to name it Liu Jiabao Street, so that every day they have to look at that. I love that. I love that idea. That's one of those Cruz moments that reminds me how much and why I like Cruz so much. Guess what? Dianne Feinstein says that we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't have even vote on it. Shouldn't be an idea. How dare we have this idea? I mean, it's insane. And Cruz says Dr. Liu is in Chinese prison, and the Senior Senator of California is standing objecting to recognize this Nobel laureate's bravery? Is standing objecting because presumably it will embarrass his communist captors? I, for one, think as Americans, we should not be troubled by embarrassing communist oppressors. Amen. I could not have said it better myself. I had no idea that Dianne Feinstein had this huge connection to China. It blew my mind. I guess her husband is Blumenthal, a big finance guy, and he has big financial ties to China, big time. Maybe I said the wrong name. I'm getting my names all mixed up. I apologize. It's not Blumenthal, it's just Bloom. It's crazy. Her husband is Richard Bloom. There, I got it. And the prize is the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, and the Chinese news just gets better, because Google is saying we want to move our cloud services over to China. And Amazon's already doing this. And what's crazy is that the Department of Defense and loads of United States government branches, bureaucracies, I should say executive branch bureaucracies, put their cloud services with Amazon. Amazon moved their cloud servers over to China. That's nuts. Google wants to do the same thing. Now, why is that nuts, Peter? Well, because China likes to hack. China likes to have its finger in every pie. It doesn't matter whose pie. Could be my pie, could be your pie. It's not China's pie. China's never supposed to see the pie or taste the pie. It's never going to have the pie. China don't care. China's like the honey badger. China just does it. And so putting it on their cloud service just makes it that much easier for them to hack it. China spends a huge amount of money on a team that all they do is hack U.S. Companies and the U.S. government, and they steal intellectual properties, patents, state secrets. I mean, they're nasty in the espionage, and they barely, I mean, they don't apologize. I take it back. They don't apologize. That's one of the big things in the trade war that I do agree that Trump needs to push on. I disagree with kind of the way he's doing it, because trade war via tariff, not a good idea. The trade war in that sense is never helpful in the end anyway. It just hurts a lot of people. But if it could say we could get China to respect intellectual property, then patents, that'd be awesome. But Google doesn't care. Google, there used to be 10 years ago, Google was in China, and China says we want you to censor X, Y, and Z in China, and Google at the time pushed back. Not so anymore. Google, no, they are going to put out a fully censored version of their search engine in China. And these last two stories I'm reading to you is from Reuters. They named their project Dragonfly. That's kind of interesting. They've been pushing this since 2017. Search terms include that will be blacklisted: human rights, democracy, religion, peaceful protests. Peaceful protests. We're going to blacklist that. I mean, wow. Now, the government, if anyone with a brain that owns a big company, if you already know this, but if you're just a little guy like me, here's the thing. Don't buy any phone made by ZTE or Huawei. And Huawei, it's like Huawei. And they're a phone company that makes dirt cheap Android phones. Don't buy them. A lot of them come with hardware inside that's made to siphon your information and secrets. The Department of Defense and the military made it illegal to own one and to bring one there. Congress was talking about banning ZTE in the country completely. Trump has actually, oddly enough, pushed back on that idea, which I don't understand. Anyhow, the Democrat candidates are told not to do this. The Democratic National Committee is warning all its members and party candidates to not use devices made by Chinese telecommunication company ZTE Corp and Huawei, I think it's Huawei Technologies, because they pose a security risk. So there you go. That's my China news. So now, even after all that euthanasia talk, I'm sure you're glad that you're living in the Western world. And if you're listening to this, you're probably listening to the United States. What a wonderful country we live in. I mean, man, it could be a heck of a lot worse. We could be China. I mean, you think you have a low-wage problem here in the United States? Try making it in China. Goodness gracious. I mean, if you think we have a civil rights problem in here in the United States, look at China. I mean, China makes so many things look better here. Whew. All right, time for some more fun news. We're going back to Star Wars. I look up Star Wars, Doctor Who news like a crack addict. I mean, I cannot seem to leave it alone. I'm always on Google at least once a day looking up Star Wars and Google News and Doctor Who. So here's some I got some good, not Doctor Who news. I got some good Star Wars news to share with you today. Well, sort of good. This first one is awesome. It's an interview here with Mark Hamill. Recently, Harrison Ford's shirt sold for like $1 million. It's the jacket he wore from Empire Strikes Back. It's expected to fetch well over $1 million at auction. So I completely botched that story, but you get the idea. So Mark Hamill says, well, what about this? So here he is on Kimmel. It was last Thursday.
Very good to have you here. It's Mark Hamill, everyone.
What's
up?
Much.
What's going on?
Well, I couldn't help overhear you talking about how much Han Solo's jacket's going to sell for.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I mean, it's incredible. How much?
They said $1.3 million. It could be more than that. It's a lot.
Unbelievable. But hey, I've got a special offer for one night and one night only. I'm prepared to offer your audience a pair of Luke Skywalker's capri pants.
They are real nice. I mean, how much are you asking for them?
Well, I think they're going to go for $100,000. I do accept PayPal and Venmo.
The thing is, I mean, not that doesn't seem like a great deal, but I think the reason that the Han Solo jacket is so valuable is because he wore it in The Empire Strikes Back. He wore it as a movie prop.
Well, what are you talking about? I wore those in Empire Strikes Back.
I don't remember that.
Well, perhaps this will refresh your memory.
Oh, it's the pants he wore when he was with Yoda.
I remember that scene. I don't remember.
Yeah, I used to call him my Luke High Waters.
Oh, okay. Man,
sometimes I call him my Padawan pedal pusher. You like that one?
Yeah, I did like that one. That was well done. And so this was these are actual movies.
Yeah, and not only that, but I also wore them in Return of the Jedi.
You did the
same.
Have a look.
Now they added footage of him fighting Darth Vader. That's funny.
I love the feeling of that cool breeze on my ankles when I was fighting Dad Vader. It was great.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, the memories.
So how much do you want for these?
Well, I thought 100,000.
Yeah, wow.
Come on now, let's start the bidding. 100,000. Who's got 100,000?
I see they're enthusiastic, but I don't think these girls have $100,000. I think the price is a little bit steep.
You think that's a little pricey?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Okay, well, how about 50,000 and I'll throw in a Chewbacca hairball.
It's just like a hairball. It's a brown hairball.
Paddles.
Nobody has paddles.
Yeah, no one here has that kind of money to spend on a pair of pants and a hairball.
What a bunch of losers. Maybe I should go hit up Dr. Phil's audience.
Yeah, maybe that's probably a better idea.
All right. Beam me up, Scotty.
Yeah, that's from Star Trek. That's not a thing from here.
Oh, yeah. Whatever, you nerd. All right, pants. All right. It's time to hit the brink.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Hamill. With you. You never know who might walk in.
That was great. I love that. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was pretty funny. I have a link to that too. This is videos through CNET, but that was Jimmy Kimmel Live on Thursday night. That was funny. It came in R2-D2 bag, by the way. I don't know if I'd pay $50,000 for pants, even if they were in Star Wars, especially ones I didn't know I remembered until I saw him in the Yoda? Yeah, I can't talk today. Yoda footage. Okay, so that's the fun Star Wars news. The sad Star Wars news is Star Wars can't get the movie rights to their own movies. For TV. So Star Wars wants to make TV, like live action TV, and it wants to get its 3 main trilogies for the small screen and online. It doesn't own them, actually. It sold some to Star Wars, and it sold for TV to TBS. This is back in 2016. 2016, this is not even hardly 2 years ago. It sold them for about $275 million, so they could have the rights to use them till 2024. Now, of course, the Clone Wars and stuff, they can put out there. I think Clone Wars, I don't know if the new stuff is going to be with Disney, but it used to be Cartoon Network. Rebels is done with Disney. They have a new show coming out, Spout the Resistance, which is the current movies era book. No, not a fan. But Disney, for whatever reason, sold their rights. They sold the rights. So essentially, Disney can't have its full-on Disney Star Wars streaming service till 2024. 6 years away. Ouch. I don't know what was going on there. That's embarrassing. That is just sad. At least they have the money to buy those pants, though. If they want those pants, $100,000 and you get a hairball? No, $50,000 you get the hairball. Anyhow, let's talk about the NRA, Iran, and Venezuela. Venezuela, $50,000. You could get a lot for $50,000. I mean, not food. Obviously not food. And not in bolivars. In US dollars, yeah, but bolivar, I mean, that'd be like a bajillion bolivars. Well, we'll get to that. I have a story here about the NRA. I didn't know where to put it. Because it's just the one story. It's not a bunch of news stories clustered together that I like to use. Basically, the NRA is claiming, at least to New York, that they're in deep financial trouble and in the future may be unable to exist. In the short term, they're looking like NRA TV, which is and video streaming services. They don't think they can keep up with them, and that would also probably include their radio stuff. Basically, the blame for this is all the suits that they've seen, particularly from New York. What this did was, and this is so wrong, this is like Twitter shadow banning, where Twitter says, we're not banning them, not really. We're just making it so no one can see them. Unless they click their page. It's ridiculous. Well, New York is shadow banning the NRA. Basically, because of all the stuff, March for Our Lives, New York decided to move ahead against the NRA with these suits. That was civil suits against the NRA. And what this did was they said then that they couldn't have this insurance service. So it's not quite insurance, but it was like insurance the NRA would offer for people that end up, if an unfortunate situation where you have to shoot someone to defend your family, this insurance was there to give you legal services so that you would be, you'd get the proper lawyer and everything else you need. Well, this got ruled that this wasn't legitimate insurance. Not cool. So they didn't just kill this off, but after they killed this off, then every single bank in New York and other financial services basically said, we're not going to work with the NRA. And the NRA can't function with money if it can't get to its money. It's like if the bank suddenly told you, well, you're not allowed to have your money. You're not allowed to touch it. We won't work with you. Wells Fargo won't work with you. Premier won't work with you. U.S. Bank, Bank of America, Citibank, whatever other bank. I don't know what other bank. Dakota Bank, that's one of the banks around here. Dakota Bank. You're not at work. Well, how are you supposed to get your money? Well, that's the kind of the problem the NRA is in right now. It's not a situation of people aren't donating enough. It's a situation that they can't touch their money. And I just think that's kind of sleazy. Now, I know it's been reported some that the NRA sounds like the way they're framing is the NRA isn't getting any support. People are turning from the NRA in droves because of the gun stuff. And that's not the case. The case is the legal gymnastics that are being used against the NRA. Now, Planned Parenthood, if you're in favor of Planned Parenthood, let me ask you, would you be okay with this being done to Planned Parenthood? Now, I am the pro-life. I'm going to be honest. I'd probably say yes. But money is speech. I hate to point this out. People hate this idea, but it's the truth. Money is speech. Money is a form of speech. And so making it impossible for organization with political aims, be it Planned Parenthood, be it the NRA, they have to be able to have money services. Even if, as much as I detest Planned Parenthood, and I really do, even detest Planned Parenthood more than, say, any other abortion provider, like, local small clinic or something, because Planned Parenthood, they make selling off baby parts and politics and all kinds of unethical stuff. That's a topic for another day. So that's just not cool. I thought I'd let some people know. If you're hearing about this NRA being shut down because it's failing as an organization, that's not the truth. The truth is that financially it just can't get money. It can't touch its money. It can't move its money around. If you can't get to the money, even if you have it, if you can't get to it, basically you don't have it. For all intents and purposes. All right, so we're going to move from that NRA. Quickly, we're going to talk about Iran. This is awesome. I feel like some of my prayers have been answered because when it comes to Iran, it's a miracle. I didn't think, at least in my young lifetime, that I would see the Iranian regime topple over. And we are so close to this. Basically, the sanctions against Iran have worked. The economy turned against Iran. So this last year and a half, Iranian protests have been popping up all over the country. It's gone so bad that even just recently, it happened in the capital city. Yeah, it's called the Rial. The Rial is the Iranian currency, and it continues to plunge. And this is before some of the new sanctions that the Trump administration has put against them are going to be implemented. And they're going to be implemented today, but this came out last week. It's so bad that the protesters were outside yelling, quote, "Death to the dictator," unquote. That's, of course, a reference to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It's not, no one's being surprised that, of course, the Iranian leaders, they're not out of a job, they're not broke, they're still raking in millions. That's a quote, actually, from the Daily Wire. And while the protesters many of them are begging. They say, here's a part of their chant, the protesters chant, "The nation is forced to beg while the leader lives like God." That's the chant. Yeah. I think that's amazing. That's amazing that this is getting out at all. It's amazing that they're having this big push. They've now used tear gas. They've attacked the protesters. The problem is besides the tear gas, I don't know how much attacks they've gone in because, of course, Iran, being Iran, doesn't allow any information out or in, hardly. Only the stuff it wants. So to get this information at all is incredible. That's kind of how you guys get a look when you're talking about journalism in Iran, is that they're under some of the hardest free speech restrictions in the world. And so when you hear stuff like this, death to the dictator, that's incredible. I mean, wow. If that happens, that would be amazing. Amazing. So please, for those who are of any faith, pray, maybe talk to people around you about Iran, because I'm not sure everyone knows about what's going on in Iran. Okay, and the other place that is seeing huge change, but probably won't lead to anything good, unfortunately. I have higher hopes for Iran than I do this country. Venezuela. Down in Venezuela. The socialist paradise everyone liked to reference until about 2 years ago. It's not doing so hot down there. Venezuela, the socialist paradise, where all our great Hollywood actors, Sean Penn being probably the biggest one I can think of, hanging out, taking pictures. I think Obama giving high fives to the Chavez, who was the late dictator that passed away a few years ago. I mean, just crazy stuff. I don't think it was high fives exactly, but I mean, it was a little bit too friendly for my taste. Anyhow, it's getting crazy down there. They're having... Okay, so you want to know how crazy it is? It was so crazy. Okay, so who here likes zoo animals? Who here likes zoo animals? I love the zoo. The zoo is fun. Kangaroos. I love looking at kangaroos, giraffes, seals. The Omaha Zoo has awesome seals that I love going whenever I'm there. I probably look like a really big weirdo. What's that guy doing over there? But the seals, they talk back if you do that. If you have seals, do this. They will talk back to you. They will bark back at you. And it is lots of fun. I highly recommend you do it. Venezuela doesn't have zoo animals anymore. They ate them. And this is a story. This story I have here is from a year ago, August 17th, 2017. The title is from Forbes, and it says, the headline, Venezuela's starving people are now eating the zoo animals. Oh, man. Basically, all the zoo animals were being stolen and eaten. And what we're being eaten, we're starving to death. And I don't really know what's happened since, but I imagine not good. There was a story I didn't include on this, but it was from March, and it was like this actor wants to rescue them, and I didn't look too hard into if he rescued them or not, but I have my doubts, guys. I have my doubts. And the reason they get eating is because there are gangs in Venezuela that fight over trash cans. That's right. There are gangs made up of children, some as young as 6, that fight over trash can territory because the people are starving. Venezuela, in this year, in the last 12 months, has had an inflation rate of 82,766%. 82,766%. That is hyperinflation. I mean, when you talk hyperinflation, I mean, that's hyperinflation. I mean, wow. We're looking at Weimar Zimbabwe dollars going on right there. Weimar Republic was famous for, near the end of its time, right before Hitler and whatnot took over, had huge inflation, had hyperinflation, which led to its collapse. Zimbabwe, of course, is still famous for Zimbabwe dollars. We could get $1 billion bill. Look it up. They're having this problem in Venezuela. That was last month. I have another story, follows up. It says that the inflation could hit as much as 1 million%. Could hit as much as 1 million% at the end of 2018. And guess this, the IMF projects that it underestimated the inflation. The IMF underestimated the inflation. Sorry, word's still gone. I mean, wow. I mean, a cup of coffee in Venezuela. This is as of July 26th, 2018. A cup of coffee in Venezuela now costs 2 million bolivars. 2 million bolivars. I mean, it's gotten so bad that the president of Venezuela, who is a dictator for all intents and purposes, came out and he said it's their fault. The economy is their fault. It's their party's fault. They're sorry. I mean, this is a dictatorship. Dictators usually don't take kindly to the truth or repentance, apologizing, just not in their nature. But he came out and says, it's our fault. We messed up. We messed up, guys. Now, do I believe that there will be any change because it's no. I mean, there'll have to be really drastic changes to get on track. And it's not going to be the kind of communistic or socialistic reforms that people are expecting. I mean, even slight reforms probably won't be enough. We're at hyperinflation, and once you get that momentum going, it's really hard to pull back and stop. In fact, in history, as far as I know, there's never really been a country that had hyperinflation of that kind of level, and the economy was able to heal. If you know this, and I am wrong, let me know. Because we've had hyperinflation in the past, but never like 1,000,000% here in the United States. We were fine. Japan's had some hyperinflation, but I mean, they bounced back for the most part. I mean, they still have economic problems. Bounce back is in their society's doing relatively okay. Not like Weimar Republic, which does not exist. Or Zimbabwe, which they just had elections. I think they were violent from what I read. And their old dictator says, okay, I have my doubts. We'll see. And it's gone violent, so much so that Venezuela just had a big assassination attempt on their President Maduro. It's pretty bad. I have this awesome story. It's the last, so if you go to my outline, segment 3, NRA, Iran, and Venezuela. The last story is by Cato at Liberty. It's the Cato Institute. That's titled Venezuela, the biggest humanitarian crisis that you haven't heard of. It talks not just about the economic problem, but the amount of people that migrated. They estimate, because of what's going on in Venezuela, since 2015, we could be anywhere from 1.6 million to 4 million Venezuelans have left their home country. 4 million in a relatively small South American country. Let's say mid-sized South American country. 4 million. Just leave. And that probably might be an underestimate. I mean, wow. There's this cool chart that shows that Venezuelans leaving abroad. And you look at it, it's like 2005 to 2015. It's relatively stable. Maybe 100,000 difference. And then you jump up, and now you're at almost 3 million in 2018. And you just... there's a couple of cool charts. And most of the destination countries, South America, North America, Central America, they're just kind of leaving. They're just getting out of there. So some of those countries that are around it probably have big problems. Brazil, Colombia, Peru. I wonder how they're dealing with it. It's not a surprise to me that Venezuela is having the economic problems it is, because socialism, statism in particular, does not work. The more statist, the more socialist a country is, the least likely their economy is going to thrive in bad times. When the oil price was high and things were good, Venezuela could barely get by. It wasn't great, but they could get by. I mean, it probably was. There's a lot of fakery, a lot of forced statist policies being put on people, but the country essentially got by. Not so. When times turn rough, we're not even just relatively okay. I mean, the country's just with a crash. And that's what we're seeing here with Venezuela. That's what we're seeing here with Iran. And Iran isn't socialist. They don't claim to be socialist, but they are statist. That's why we see often in countries like North Korea, another statist country, that, the way they get by doing things is zero freedom at all. The people are dirt poor. And let me tell you, North Korea is not doing well. There's a reason they play kissy face with all the nukes, okay? Because they know it's one of the few things letting them survive. Now, I'm at hour 4. I had another segment I was ready to share with you guys about some cool tech news about genetically modified mosquitoes wiping out dengue fever out in an Australian city. That's pretty nifty. I had another story about ESPN reviving ESPN Ocho, which was a fake channel joked about in the movie Dodgeball, a classic Not really. It's okay. They're funny parts. It's not a great one. I wouldn't recommend it to a lot of people. If you've seen it once, that's enough. But they're reviving Ocho. They're going to have chess, boxing. I think they're going to have dodgeball. They're going to have a couple of other sports no one ever wants to watch. That's awesome.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Okay, I'm done. I love it. Oh man, Star Trek The Next Generation. So here's the fantastic news. This report's from IGN. Jean-Luc Picard will be returning to the Star Trek universe, starring none other than Sir Patrick Stewart in the role. That's right. There will be a new Star Trek Next Generation series starring Picard. CBS announced last Saturday. I mean, that's so awesome. I am so freaking excited for this. I didn't used to like Picard. It was only last year when my brother John and I were like, let's see what all the fuss is about. So we watched all of Next Gen, and then we watched, what is it? We watched Voyager. We watched, what's the one on the satellite? Whatever. You guys know what you're talking about, you Star Trek fans. We watched all of them. It was fantastic. Some Star Trek is hit or miss, but the 90s, the end of the 80s and the 90s Star Trek is pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. I just enjoyed it a lot. I can't say enough good things. Patrick Stewart is an incredible actor. Even on that corny show, you can see his talent right off. This is so cool. He's kind of an older dude, so I'm a little surprised that this would happen. The last time we saw Jean-Luc Picard was back in Star Trek Nemesis, which is a so-so movie. That was in 2002. Star Trek The Next Generation ran from 87 to 1994. That's what I'm reading here. They even, it's going to be what? So Star Trek Discovery is going to have a second season in January 2019 with Alex Kurtzman as showrunner. There are looking to be 4 new Star Trek projects, which include this new Picard series. And who knows what else. They're thinking there might be a Starfleet Academy series and possibly a series based on the movie Wrath of Khan. And then we're all reading this from IGN. Oh my goodness. I mean, if you guys saw Sir Patrick Stewart in The Wolverine, is that the name of the movie? I don't remember the movie. You guys, the one where he's old, yeah. Amazing. I mean, wow, what an incredible actor. This is going to be great. I'm excited. It is kind of weird, him being so old, this being 16 years since he had the role, but awesome. So I'm going to end today with a clip from a favorite music video of mine. The artist name is Pogo. He's an Australian guy, and he likes to take old clips from movies and television series and use those to, he samples them and then uses those to make music. It's just pretty cool. This is my very favorite Pogo song. It's called Data and Picard. I have a link to it. I've probably shared it on Facebook before, but I think I'll play maybe the first 30 seconds or so, and then I highly recommend that you all go online and look it up yourself.
Back when I was in the academy, we would follow every toast with a song. Federation starship. Come cheer up my lads, come cheer up my lads. 'Tis better to have loved and lost. Captain John Picard, 17346732147 Charlie 3278.
All right, well, thank you so much for watching today. This has been The Happy Warrior. Please remember to send me any emails, stories, or questions about any of the subjects I've talked about or you'd like me to talk about. Go to pete@happywarrior.net. That's pete@happy-warrior.net. Thank you so much. God bless all of you. God bless the troops. God bless the United States of America. God bless freedom lovers and liberty lovers everywhere. Good night.
Thank you for listening. The Happy Warrior Podcast, hosted by Peter Vaughn Pischke, produced by Robert Mehling, a production of the Sioux Empire Podcast Network. Learn more at happy-warrior.net.
僕らは出会うだろう同じ鼓動の音を目印にしてここにいるよいつだって飛んでるからくたびれた理由が重なって揺れる時生まれた意味を知る存在が続く限り
A production of the SiouxEmpire.com